Judd Apatow and Pete Holmes promoting season 3 of Crashing. I've been seeing posters for it in the subway.
Yeah.
That's how you know. Hello, sir. Good to see you. Yeah, I've been seeing you floating. It's a great poster they gave you where you're kind of just floating in the
harnessed.
Oh, you were
My
harnessed?
mother was like, "Were you jumping? What were you doing, Petey? Were you jumping?"
How high off the ground were you?
About as high as it looks. But you know, everything in that photo is, unprofesh. Jimmy Nort with the adjust for the friend. They put in the shadow. They put in the spotlight. What am I, a guy who just found out Photoshop is a thing? You wouldn't believe it. You wouldn't believe it.
So you're not actually
real.
I figured it was some kind of anti-gravity chamber that they shot the whole thing.
No.
And you're saying harness.
They go up in the vomit comets and actually
take a shot as you're plummeting.
Every year there's a moment where we go, what's the poster for Crashing? And I have to sit in all these meetings and go, how do I have a picture of Pete's head that makes people want to watch the show?
I have a head that makes people want to buy birth control. Or maybe mints.
Do you sit there and as it's like season 3 now, the show is a big show now, do you have to go like, well, we have to put a little bit more production value in the poster?
It is a tricky thing because you go, most people drive by the poster. So the only way that you know it's the show is if Pete's head is really big.
Yeah, that's a Judd philosophy. Obviously, you think of the 40-year-old virgin, think of Knocked Up.
Yeah.
I see other friends that have shows and they do these posters where they're like one person in a crowd. And I'm like, your show's not big enough. It's got to be the name of the show huge, you huge, and the time huge. None of this like, you'll find us. No, you won't.
Yeah, but you know what?
There's too many shows.
You're lucky
Make
because
it clear.
This is clearly your show. You know that people have had that conversation where they're the star of the show, but really it's a whole cast. And they go, what about just my face on the poster? And somebody's got to be like, it's not about you.
Well, when you have to put like 7 people on the poster, people don't know what the show is.
Right.
Yeah. We have that with movies. We're like, I think we have to show everyone or they'll be mad that it makes the poster terrible.
Well, what do you think happened with the Supremes? You think that they suggested that Diana Ross put her name first?
I get Artie has such loyal fans. I can't tweet about the show without 10,000 people, 10,000 being like, where's Artie? More Artie. Like he'll be in the trailer and they'll be like, more Artie. I'm like, it's a trailer. It's like a taste of the show. Yeah, it needs to be more Artie.
Are you guys worried about him? Because everybody was tweeting like apparently like, all these, hey, get help. And like, recently, like, are you guys concerned?
Oh, when you said that, I was like, did something happen last night?
No,
This is the world of friends of Artie. Obviously,
Right.
Obviously, it's unfortunate. But yeah, we're concerned about Artie for sure. His nose looks awful.
Yeah.
And he's in pain and he's suffering.
He's he's trying to get sober, but fighting the good fight, and it's really hard. And for people who spend a lot of time with him, you get an up close look at the horrors of addiction.
I got a very specific Artie though, so I'm not like maybe the best person, like Quinn or some these people that have known Artie for like a really long time. Maybe you. Have you known Artie a long time?
For a while, yeah.
So I bet you would, you have more of a sense of the flavor. The Artie that I know, and I'm not just saying this to help his career, was very, very professional. I used to joke, I was like, I thought you'd be throwing up dry cigarettes by now. But he'd come in, he'd know his lines. Nobody's funnier.
Yeah.
He kills scenes. I've said many times, I think a big reason, wouldn't you agree, our pilot got picked up was because of his performance in the pilot, which he improvised. And at the end, everyone applauded like Nick Nolte in The Fighter. It was crazy. It really was. I've never seen, we've done 3 seasons now. No matter what I do, no applause. Artie got the crew to applaud.
Well, so he's interesting because he does, when he's functioning, he's great. Like, we would show up, he would do Howard, and I was doing O&A, and I would be getting here exactly the same time as him. And I'm like, he does heroin, and I'm not showing up 5 minutes earlier than Artie. We're getting here at the same time.
No, I know. He's playing with a pretty big handicap, and he's still winning.
Was his nose like going through the process as you were shooting?
Well, you got to have a nose update. His nose was different,
right?
But it would be different every day. I'm not trying to be funny. It was a different nose.
Well, that's what I'm asking. When you're trying to do a show and you're like, well, we're not necessarily shooting the scenes in order, but your nose keeps changing.
From scene to scene, there was nose continuity issues. Again, not trying to be funny. It's just a fact, and my heart breaks for Artie. It's something that you'd sometimes have to, fix or talk about or
Or work around.
Or work it around.
It is a weird thing to have to work.
Shoot you from behind over the shoulder.
Do you talk about it on the show, or do you just try to deal with it behind the scenes?
We didn't talk about the nose on the show.
Yeah.
And we tried to talk about what he's going through on the show. So last season we did a whole episode, and it was basically about Pete realizing how bad Artie's addiction is, and the fact that no matter how much he tries to help, it doesn't work, and it's really up to Artie to find the strength to do it. And Artie wrote it he improvised and talked about it and was very brave about showing how painful his world can be. And it was a really important episode because, Artie was showing people like, this is awful.
Yeah.
And if I tell you the truth about it, maybe there's someone out there when they're in that moment where they might try something or do something, they might go, I don't want to experience what Artie's going through.
He wishes he could put it down more than anything.
Yeah, he always says it was the worst moment of his life was the first time that he tried heroin, that he wishes
because of what that would lead to.
He wishes he could take it back. And he says the second he did it, in his mind, he went, I'm in big trouble. The second he did it.
I think everyone feels that way about heroin, though. Most people, I'm guessing, who get hooked on it don't do heroin and go, this sucks. Like, it's probably amazing. There is a way to get off it, though. I mean, if he wanted to, there is a way. It's very difficult, but there is a way to stop it.
You also, I mean, it is a disease, that addictive personality mixed with the heroin, I think, is what we're dealing with. Just because, I'm just going to tell you, full disclosure, it was a Facebook video, but it was interesting. It was based on a TED Talk. They were talking about addiction and how
Facebook video based on a TED Talk.
So somebody...
That's like reading an article. You just said you read an article.
There was a Vine of it.
It was a 6-second Vine summarizing an article.
Yes.
But they were talking about the phenomenon of people that need painkillers, strong painkillers that are given Oxycontin and oxycodone and all those different ones. Oxykitten. Judd Apatow, shout out. It's a line from one of his movies. Anyway, they don't get addicted, and it sort of broke the myth, the idea that if you do it once, that you're addicted. So it's not just the magical substance. It is. Like, it's absolutely super, 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 super addictive, and don't just take my word for it. There's plenty of research on this.
So you're saying this video was letting people know if you don't have an addictive personality, try some heroin. It actually is fun.
I don't know where Pete's going with this. It sounds really wrong, though.
Look, science can't be wrong.
Yeah, I saw a Facebook video. Rich Voss was... Okay, makes sense. And, Joe, we got to ask you, too. I have to ask you as a comedian.
Yes, please.
The tweets about Louis.
Yes.
That was...
Who? Louis Katz?
Can you? I literally didn't know about it until the next day because I've taken Twitter off my phone, and I saw one.
Have you?
Were you getting flack for that, or can you walk us through like just what happened there with your thinking? Was it?
Well, I think we all want Louis to talk about what he's going through in a way that is, inward searching, lets us know what he makes of it all, because there's so much to say about it. And that's, when someone says, I'm going to go away and try to think about this. I didn't look at it in the right way before. So when they return and they don't say a word about it, that's kind of weird, because that's what we were hoping that you would do, is say, hey, I kind of get it now. I'm trying to do right by these people. I'm trying to evolve as a person. So he's not saying that at all. Mm-hmm. He's just punching down at, kids who got shot at or whose friends died, and you go, what's your angle here if you're making fun of trans people? And I just thought to myself, I know we all talk about everything. You do it all the time. I've never watched you and thought like, oh God, but if you're the guy trying to say to the world, I hurt people and I get it. Your comeback material shouldn't be mocking kids whose friends were murdered.
Can I ask you though? I understand. Do you think, and this is just a question, that as performers, as comedians, we're working stuff out, punching up, punching down. I mean, everyone punches down once in a while. Carlin did it with anorexia. Rich cunts don't want to eat.
But isn't it just the context? I think what he's saying is like it's a heartbreaker when one of the best comedians that ever lived came back from this tragedy, and instead of addressing it like Pryor did when he lit himself on fire, he just came back and was like, okay, nothing's changed. We're like, motherfucker, things have to change. You have to show us change. It's not just important for you, it's important for everybody that's watching. There's a lot of scumbags out there that could be redeemed. But
that's not his job as a comedian. His job as a comedian is, again, I know what you're saying, but that's not our job as comedians.
I think you sort of lose that pass if you do atrocious things.
I don't even think you need a pass. Pryor didn't lose the pass. Pryor fucking pulled a gun on his wife. He didn't lose the pass.
At least he found a way to talk about it with humility.
But what I'm saying is Louis is working out a bit, and I might even say it was an offense.
The bit is evidence that he's not taking the time to reflect. Isn't that heartbreaking? I'm not. Look,
I don't even agree with that.
I'm with you that he can talk about whatever he wants. Let's not take anybody's card away. So let's not be unclear about that. I'm just saying, when something like this happens, especially if this didn't happen to Louis, like let's say it was another comedian, I would be like, what's Louis going to say about it? Mm-hmm. I would look to Louis to laugh, to heal and to find some catharsis through him. And he's acting like it didn't happen.
Maybe, but Louis, maybe that's just whatever reason he's making that decision. I might handle it differently, or you might handle it differently, but he's handling it like that. But does that make him like less than because he's doing a bit that is offensive? Like it was an offensive. His job is not to teach a lesson. His job is to go up and be funny. Our job is not to have a higher motive behind a joke. We can, but that's not what we're supposed to do.
Isn't it two different criticisms to criticize for not addressing what you should be addressing? Because I do agree that Louis should be talking about this thing that we all know. And then
it would make his life easier, I think, if he did.
But then to be critical of the material that he's doing instead, that feels like it's two separate
I think it's all part of one organism, which is we all looked up to him. He inspired us. He pushed us to work harder. He pushed us to think deeper. He represented something to people. And so when you come back from hurting people and what you're talking about on stage just hurts other people, we're allowed to say publicly,
oh, he's still hurting
This is kind of fucked up.
How come
we're allowed to, I mean, he doesn't have a right to not be criticized. It's not like he's in a bubble and we're supposed to be secretive about his act. He's on a public stage. He's getting paid. And so the opposite could be that you go, well, I'm just not going to say anything. But somewhere out there, and I know this is something that like a lot of comedians don't care about, somewhere out there are kids whose friends are dead. And they're trying to get over it. And this guy they probably used to really look up to is shitting on them, saying, you're not interesting. And it's helpful to them for someone to go, you know what, fuck that. I don't agree with what he's saying. There's nothing wrong with saying that. Louis should keep working on his act. But that crowd is kissing his ass so hard. And so much of that material is so weak and from such a demented point of view that why shouldn't he hear from certain people like, hey, Louis, you're kind of out of tune right now. And maybe it helps Louis for somebody other than that kiss-ass crowd to go,
why are they a kiss-ass crowd, though, if they were just laughing at what they thought? Like, hold on. He took something he took the angle of being obnoxious. Louis is absurdist. The real point a guy is making, and again, I haven't talked to him about this, is, hey, these guys were in this strategy, but why does that make them qualified to speak for us? That's a point of view that people do have, whether it's nice or not. He takes it to whatever degree and is vicious about it. He takes the mean angle on it. But Louis has always been. Hold on. He's always said stuff like, "I'm going to diarrhea shit in your mother's mouth." He was on a plane years ago tweeting about Sarah Palin, about shitting in Sarah Palin's mouth, about talking about her retarded kid. Like Louis
he deleted that though.
He did delete it, but everyone knows that that's how his mind works, where he'll take it to this absurdist, obnoxious, brutal point of view. He's always done that as a comedian.
But are we allowed to debate the value of that?
But why are people all of a sudden... Well, as comedians, though...
Well, because when you find out that Michael Jackson molests children, suddenly Pretty Young Thing means something different. Like the context of it all. Like George Carlin was a good guy. So when he talked about how he wanted the world to be lit on fire, we kind of understood that his point was we all need to wake up a little bit because the world's going to shit. So he would root on all the negative.
So you're
saying
there
was a point to it.
It's the same
but Richard
thing
Pryor
like
wasn't the greatest guy.
If Uber has like some questionable practice, remember when that happened?
Yeah.
We're all like, well, we're going to delete Uber. I guess they figured it out. There was nothing wrong with Uber. You're just saying, like, well, we found something out about the practice of the person.
I guess the question is, are we allowed to debate it? I mean, part of it, you feel this with comedians, that we're all supposed to not discuss the material.
Not true.
Like, us talking about it, I think is great. What's wrong
I don't
with us
feel that
talking
you can't
about
discuss them. I'm not saying that. I had nothing against people who were offended by it or who thought the bit stunk. Of course, it's all fair. But as comics, to look at a comic working a bit out and act like we don't know what they're doing. Like a lot of times you work through different angles of a bit. This is not a finished piece you put out.
You're not thinking about the other part of it. And this is because, you may not tuned into it. I've done these benefits with shooting victims, right? So I've sat with like a parent who's like, my kid is dead. And she tells me the story about how her kid got shot for trying to, save his girlfriend. And I've met a lot of people who got over getting shot in Vegas and in all these places. I've looked into their eyes. And so it's not abstract. You're talking comedy theory. There are people, this isn't like like a vague joke. He's talking about people whose names we know. We know Cameron and David and Emma. We know who they are. So give them a fucking break. At some point, I choose being a human being over like comedy theory. We could talk about everything. We're working on shit. Maybe tomorrow the bit will get better. That's fine. But those kids are reading all about this guy they probably looked up to shitting on them.
Sure,
and
but
so
that's
someone
not
should
his
go, you know what? I got
responsibility.
your back on this. I want you guys to get better. I don't give a fuck about Louis' joke.
So what other jokes should people like this? Now you're getting into an area of, because of course it was a real tragedy. No one's denying it was horrible or that it was disgusting what happened or the gun violence. Yeah, that's all very accurate. But I know people that have put guns in their own mouths. So should I not make fun of suicide?
I actually don't think it's about...
What would be your point of making fun of suicide? If you came at it from an angle of like, you're just weak, yeah, it might be fucked up, and someone might go like, yeah, that's a terrible joke. And why can't someone tell you it's a terrible joke?
They can say it's a terrible joke, but it's the idea that, well, this is a real tragedy, so he shouldn't be working it. Like, maybe that's not the final angle he will settle on. I don't know.
But those kids don't know that. It's out there,
So
right?
when you do a joke, you're only worried about the people who might be affected by the joke. Well, that narrows our corridor a lot.
But should I tweet, hey, guys, I think Louis is going to adjust his angle, so don't worry about the fact that even though you almost died, he says you're uninteresting.
No. But let me ask you, when you do a movie, and I know you improv a lot in film, you like, which is great because you allow people to improv.
Sure.
Would you want all of those dailies released as the finished product? Like, for instance, I'm sure people have said things, whether it was on the set or in a film, improving, because you allow that were tasteless or that were rude or that didn't work in the scene. Would you want all that to come out and have your final product judged on these moments that may or may not have made the final cut? This is a work in progress.
I know. But you could say that forever. We all work on our acts for a decade. But he is in a public place. He is being paid.
But that's why I don't think it's about the material.
But it was illegally uploaded. It was not meant to be for public. It was meant for that audience.
I agree with what you're saying, and I think one of the things that's important about stand-up is if you did that joke, I don't think it would be as big of a story. You know what I'm saying? What we're dealing with, and you're right, it's not his job, but whether or not he likes it, he's sort of representing something. How are men going to respond to the Me Too movement? How are they going to respond when they were, caught or confessed to doing something? And a lot of people are picking up messages on that, whether or not it's his job and whether or not he likes it. So I think what you're hearing is some of the disappointment that the hilarious, unbelievable comedian Louis, when it happened, when it came out, I was like, in a year, he's going to get on stage and he's going to blow us away. And instead he's doing this. If Rock did that joke, I'd be like, yeah, I'd be here screaming, red in the face, like it's his right. You're absolutely right. I've said things riffing in Judd's show where I'm like, don't release that. And it was fucked up that somebody did release this. And it's a violation of the artistic contract. I understand that. I'm just saying whether he likes it or not, what's egregious to me and worth discussing is how Louis, as a representation of the whole thing, is not using it as opportunity for healing and redemption. I understand he doesn't have to.
No,
you can say that
he's
all
just
day.
a comic who fucked up. He's just a comedian who fucked up. I'm not saying it was right or not in poor taste or that he should have done that, but people are acting like he has this responsibility.
I'm not acting. I'm wishing he would look at it like a responsibility.
But people aren't.
He doesn't have to. You're right. He can be an asshole if he wants to.
But he's always taken that angle as a comic. That's what I'm saying. It's not. This is not new for him as a comedian.
That's what I'm saying about Uber. Your policies
I think what Pete and Judd are saying is that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that Louis could have gotten away with it before.
That's what I'm saying.
Because you guys are like, he's a good guy.
Whether he likes
can trust
it or not,
him. We know Norton's a good guy. He can get away with this
That's
stuff.
right. If you did those jokes, I would be on this show going like, Jim, you can do whatever you want when you're working it out.
You need Louis to make you, as an audience member, feel okay with what you heard about him through his comedy before we can get back to...
I'm saying, I think we can all agree, maybe, wouldn't it have been great if the guy who maybe unfairly became the symbol of this whole thing used his incredible talent as a writer and a performer to deliver some sort of message like he always does?
Why is it only comedians? Sorry, no. Why is it only comedians?
Yeah, I like that.
Who have to deal with this shit? Like, why do actors never have to go back and explain what they've said in films?
Because
and I don't want to hear that they didn't write it because then the writers are never held accountable. But why can DiCaprio say and use the type of language he used in Django, and everyone is fine with it? But if a comic comes from a shit angle or a mean angle with the goal of being funny, all of a sudden it's, oh my God. Like, Louis was not writing a blog making a declarative statement of fact. He was not standing on a balcony going, all kidding aside, this is how I feel. He took what was arguably a very mean angle on a very sensitive and sad subject and made people laugh. And then you look at it like, well, the audience over there were kiss asses, instead of going, that was a hard, those people in that audience don't care any less about shot people than people who are sitting in this room do.
No, laughing at darkness is super.
They all
important.
care about what happened in Parkland, and yet for some reason they laughed at his angle at it. That doesn't make them kiss asses. Maybe the material was just working, and people are furious at Louis. But like Sam said, I think it's two different issues. Maybe he should address that.
I think it is two separate issues, and I think it's more of a heartbreak than anything. I'm just like, me personally, I'm with you. He's a comedian. We all have no one tells me what to do flowing through our veins. Fuck off. I'm going off-roading. You can't touch me. I'm saying it's a missed opportunity, and it broke my heart. I'm like, please, Louis, do stand up about Louis. No one can do this. And if he did, and it's not his job, if he did show growth, if he did show that he was listening, if he showed the process of wrestling, and maybe he still will, I'm not saying he has to do that.
Right. Yeah, no.
I'm saying I would like it.
As a fan, you would like it, yeah.
And he has the right to work on some fucked up shit, and I think that's an important part of stand-up. I don't want censorship. I don't want anything like that. I'm just saying it hurts me. I wish, and I'm an optimist. I'm holding out that maybe he will turn it around because I don't think this is the right move right now.
But then they jumped right into, see, well, look what he said about Asian people. Look what he said about black people. Look what he said about trans people.
Oh, and finding the old HBO clip and stuff.
Or the old HBO clip with Gervais and Seinfeld. It's like now people are just going to go over his old work and pick it apart like they're appalled and shocked instead of realizing people are hailing him as a genius for all these years. And then because this happens, and again, people have the right to not be fans and go, fuck him, we don't like him.
Can I ask you something? It's like when someone like Dice, right, is going out. We were talking about this off mic. Jeselnik, Dice. This is an important corner of comedy. It doesn't all have to be me. We don't all have to be talking about bubbles and fucking unicorns.
I would much rather be you than me.
I'm like, I love your comedy. You know what I'm saying? I understand. I'm not like an idiot going like, everything should be woke.
Yeah.
I don't believe that. I believe there's different parts of the human psyche. They all need representation. And laughing at your fucked up material, like some of your darker stuff, is catharsis. When we find out the person doing it is struggling with something, I kind of just want to go, can we pause on moving forward in the way you've been moving and just maybe adapt? Again, he doesn't have to. It's what I'm expressing is a disappointment that he's not going, let me show you before I go back to that stuff. Let me show you that I can grow a little bit and listen like he promised he would in his apology.
Maybe it's hard. And again, I don't know. I have not asked Louis this. Maybe it's hard because you know that anything you say could be leaked out there. So if you start talking about this material and it seems like you're being flippant about it, or if it seems like you don't care about, like, I don't know. Maybe he's just stuck and doesn't know how to do it. I honestly don't know.
I also think that he may not understand the gravity of what he did, and there's a defiance in talking about trans people and saying Asian people have small penises and making fun of shooting victims. There's a projection of his own pain and his own frustration with his situation, and you feel it in his selection of material. I mean, if any of us got in trouble for something and we were writing the new set and you said, well, what should I talk about in light of how everyone perceives me? The choice of his targets and subjects is super weird.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with the world going, I think you got to adjust a little bit.
I think it reminds them of being abused by somebody and then that person acting like it didn't happen.
Well, I think that there's levels to the whole thing. Like I think that I, as a fan, like I listened to part of the set. I didn't listen to the whole thing because I didn't want to listen to a whole hour of bootleg.
You didn't want him to step on your material?
Yeah, exactly. I didn't want him to disrupt my process. Yeah. But like I had no problem with any of his jokes because I was like, that's Louis. And I thought that the sort of casting him as now an alt-right comic that's going to play Red States is like, what are we doing
There's
here?
no politics behind
But
that.
as a fan, I do find myself, there is this part of me that's just waiting for what we all want to be addressed. Like Louis the one guy who's going to be able to
I think he went out of
address
order.
this.
I know, but also I think, and this is all, hey, I love a good debate about if jokes are good or bad. I think he should perform. I have no doubt in the next year and a half, he will be at Madison Square Garden doing 3 shows in a row. So this whole like Louis struggling thing, he will make $80 million on the next tour. Okay, this all lands with him triumphant in some way. Maybe not with everybody, but that's where it lands. But in the meantime, when you're somebody that's hurt people, it's weird to think your subjects should be people who are hurting. Trans people, they commit suicide. They get murdered at a crazy rate. So it's not really the moment to go, I'm put out by the fact that you want to be called by a certain name. Yeah, a lot of people have done that bit, by the way, so it's not even that interesting a bit.
The medium changes.
His bit on that was the thing he did about calling me I'm a location, and the punchline on I'm a location. It made me laugh out loud. It was a hilarious joke.
I don't even.
I like trans people. Okay, so
Jim Norton is the number one advocate.
Jim, on some level, and I get it, and we all have that in our lives. We're like, okay, we're adjusting to something, and so I guess Louis doing it's hard to adjust to a woke country type of thing, but also there are people who are like, I'm getting murdered. My friends are all committing suicide. Maybe it's not the moment to call me a jackass because I want respect.
No, I don't believe that. I mean, of course, if life was that literal, sure. But then if you made a movie about trans people being murdered, nobody would have a problem with it. If Stephen King killed trans people in his books, nobody would have a problem with it. So as artists, as comedians, the only way we can address something without being virtue signaling idiots is to try to be funny with it however we see fit. So I like barbarism in comedy. I like horrible.
Say barbarism?
I love that word. But I like it. It makes me laugh. And it has never once made me look at a subject differently than I looked at it as a human being. And no comedian's ever made me look at something differently as a human being. So Louis being horrible about Parkland won't make me feel 1 ounce less empathy for those people that happened to.
But those are real people who have real feelings about it.
No, I'm not even disagreeing with that, but I talk about 9/11. I talk about a lot, all of us do. So where is the line where there's real feelings and real? Should we not talk about cancer?
I think we're dealing with new lines, though. I think I've made my point. Maybe I should shut up because I'm saying it's different because it's Louis in light of what's happening. Not that he can't do it, because you're absolutely right. One of the problems is we're all on the record. And one of the problems is everything's being recorded.
Yeah.
And even as being a fan of something, we're losing a way to enjoy our shadow selves, which, the part of our psyche that's dark. And there was a time, and I've said this many times, it used to be in Amsterdam and you duck into a bar and you have a glass of absinthe and you watch a comedian that say the most fucked up, terrible things you've ever heard. And you'd laugh your ass off and you'd leave feeling catharsis because that's one of the human needs. It's being in your basement with your friends at a sleepover and saying the things you're not supposed to say. That's a human need, and I understand it. I'm saying it changes when everyone's looking at you and going, that's the guy who assaulted people. And again, it's not his job, but wouldn't it be nice if he would? Would you, Jim? If something came out about you, would you talk about it before you went back to the 9/11?
It'd probably be something I've already talked about.
Yeah.
So would I reiterate? Yeah.
That's so funny. But if something did happen to you, I have a feeling that you would address it. You'd self-disparage yourself. You'd put yourself down. You'd make some jokes about it. You'd even make fun of how it's bullshit that people are overreacting. You'd find a way to make us laugh at the other side. Brilliant. And then the 9/11 stuff.
Maybe.
Order matters. Order matters.
It does in a final
Louis
product.
can do those Parkland jokes. And people cannot like them. And I cannot like them. That's fine. But let's not forget the elephant in the room.
But the process, the elephant in the room too, is that it's a work in progress. And
I
with
agree.
stand-up, you don't see a singer
I just wish
going through verses.
The work in progress was different work.
But no,
for
but
now.
How do you know he's not going to get there? And maybe the bottom line
Order
is
matters.
Wait,
meaning the development of
I
it.
think
you're saying he should develop it a certain way.
He should develop the stuff that is timely. Pete's saying he should develop.
Maybe he can't develop that. Maybe he doesn't want to develop that yet until he's been on stage a little while.
I think the number one question is why
agree.
the hell isn't Louis using those goddamn cell phone bags that Dave Chappelle has?
Hilarious.
Why is anybody recording
everything
Louis
he
C.K.'s?
says right now can be recorded? So again, and I truly am speculating. Yeah. Maybe he's not going to talk about it, or maybe he's putting together a certain amount of material.
He wants to get his legs back,
and then wants to go out and do it, or maybe he wants to be filming when he finally talks about that stuff, or maybe he wants to find a way to be. I don't know.
Yeah.
But as far as judging, that's like watching somebody in the gym.
I know, but Jim, is there? And maybe it's just because you haven't been exposed to it. When you meet people whose friends have died, when you meet people who've been shot and they're fucked up for life, and you have a real empathy, and when you have kids and your kids are doing active shooter drills and they're terrified and it's ruined their entire childhoods, the fact that they really believe any day they can get murdered, that if somebody does a joke and say it's even in process, it's fine to say, hey, that was kind of fucked up. Yeah, I hope he punches up the bit. I hope he expands the bit, and Bill Burr style comes in from every angle where it's meaningful. But in the moment when he hurts those kids, I care more about those kids knowing, like people care about you, then I care about like, I got to protect Louis's bubble of comedy, right?
It's not about Louis's bubble. It's not about Louis or his bubble. That's not what my issue was. It was not about Louis. Like Louis is still worth more money than I'll ever make in my career. It was about the idea of a comic working out a bit and other comedians acting like we're not sure. What is this process that you're doing? And to answer your question, no, I haven't met a lot of shooting victims, but I know a lot of people who committed suicide. I know a lot of people who've died of AIDS, and I know a lot of people who've died of cancer. And all of those are subjects that I will address.
Agree.
So the whole personalization of it, with all due respect, is slightly manipulative because we all have a hand in tragedy that we talk about. I mean, we all have an attachment to tragedy that we talk about. I know women who've been raped, and it's still a subject there's no subject that wouldn't be on the table to me as a comedian that is acceptable to talk about. Every subject.
I'm never offended by like Gilbert Gottfried doing, tidal wave jokes or I'm
why?
fully with you. But if Gilbert Gottfried was revealed as someone who actually hurt people, I believe the context of him making those jokes changes.
And I think you understand that. Isn't it possible that I agree with you that like barbarism, if I wasn't sick, would be high-fiving right now.
Yes.
Barbarism is important to express in art. And they get the fuck out of that, like in Germany. Like, this painting is all black. It represents, you know what I mean? They understand. We're kind of struggling with that. The medium matters. Who's saying it matters? And again, he doesn't have to address it, but wouldn't it be great if he did?
So I would love to see him do it just as a comic and as a friend.
But I like your empathy that maybe he is going to do it later.
Maybe he will.
That.
And this is not even about Louis C.K. It's the idea that, because it's not just Louis who is having people act outraged.
We were talking about Louis Anderson this whole time.
He moved the microphone. I could see him. It's the idea of just the way people are viewing comics and what we say on stage. And then because he fucked up and he had what happened, he jerked off. All of a sudden, now everybody's coming out of every angle. All of a sudden, that outrage was not there when he was talking about Sarah Palin or diarrhea shitting in somebody's mother's mouth.
Sarah Palin, it was.
That's from her people, it was, yes.
Yeah.
Well, no, he deleted those tweets because of one person he spoke to.
Jim, I think it's Trump. I think we had Trump with the pussy grabbing. And we had all of this like aggression, rightful aggression that we didn't have anywhere to put, right? So where can we put it? If we can't affect over that gate into the White House, we'll affect ourselves.
But it's been happening before.
Clean up our house.
I think it's been happening before that.
I think it's a direct reaction to Trump.
I totally
and our
disagree.
Inability to get
Do you think maybe the reaction sped things up?
Maybe,
Trump?
but again, I think it's more social media. And
Do you think if Hillary was the president, would still be having all that?
Americans are exactly the same. It had nothing to do with Trump. We are the same people. We like getting each other.
No,
we
I'm just
like
saying,
attacking publicly.
But who else is having a hard time
yeah.
because of this political correctness? Like, there's so many comedians talking about so many things in so many different ways. Just because I want to know, like, who's really taking a hit right now? Like, what comedians
Norm
are
Macdonald
having a hard
almost
time?
lost his Netflix show not apologizing the right way.
Mm-hmm.
So his press tour became an apology tour.
Yeah,
because of the
Chris
first
Rock
interview.
said one thing or something. People are going back and grabbing old audio from 2011. He said the N-word. So every comic...
Well, Kevin Hart lost the
Oscars.
What?
So yeah.
Yeah, sorry, man.
Well, goodbye DVR.
But do you understand? So you're saying who's taking the hit?
Yeah, I'm
everybody.
interested.
Everybody is getting hit on some
So you
level.
think everyone is censoring themselves in a new way on stage?
I think they're at least
every
conscious
comedian
of it.
is. I don't think movies are. I don't think authors
all
are.
the comedians, like
We
for
gotta
instance,
write
I
books.
went on stage one night and I did a lot of Trump jokes in Boston at the Wilbur, and I got this great review in Boston. And then Breitbart picked out all the Trump jokes, wrote a very anti-Judd article with all the quotes, making it sound like this epic dark rant. And then the next day I just have death threats at my office and they're posting dark stuff on all my social media and stuff like that. So I got a taste of, okay, this is what it's like when you speak your mind. But my reaction to it wasn't, I got to cut all the jokes. It really was, okay, there was maybe one joke there that I thought, yeah, maybe that pushed it a hair too far. But that is the reality right now. We're on stage. Every performance is public. Every performance can be debated and reviewed. We can't stop that part of it. But like when Quinn put out his book, the coloring book, he just said, you just have to be able to stand behind what you say. You kind of have to mean what you say, even if you're working it out, that they're ideas that you've thought through in some way.
But we're not even part of a conversation because everyone says they want the conversation. No, we don't. Megyn Kelly, again, she was not doing well, but they can her for asking what is pretty much a dumb question in a racial discussion.
Yeah.
So we don't want the conversation.
That was ulterior.
But you understand, but that's still what they use. We don't want an open and honest discussion. We want people parroting what we think. That's what people want, because people, and also to address the Trump issue, you're right, there is a lot of Trump fans that are going to be fucking dicks about it. But in our business, we all know that attacking Trump and coming at it from that angle, even if you get flack, is not going to hurt you in our business.
Especially as much as
attacking Sarah Palin is
side.
not going to hurt you in our business.
Well, let me ask you a question. So if Louis is, he's punching down
When
on
do we start
trans...
I don't like saying punching down, even though it's an expression. I don't like using that because I don't think comedians, our goal is not to punch in any direction. It's to be funny, is to punch however we feel like punching in that moment.
Okay, so Louis is picking subjects where he's making jokes about a lot of people who are struggling or victims.
Sure.
And he does those jokes, right? So, and I think about this in the moment. So he does these jokes. I know that everyone's going to write about it. I know all these kids are going to read it. They are real people. This didn't happen a very long time ago.
Right.
What is the alternative? Is the alternative for the whole world to go, let's not say anything because Louis might make it better, and to be completely silent on those ideas?
No, the alternative is to go, this is a stand-up comedy performance, and the goal is to make people laugh, and comedians come from whatever angle they want to come from in the moment, and it's not an important thing, whatever angle he comes from. Whether he's being nice or mean, who gives a shit? It doesn't change anything. He's just trying to make people laugh. That's how I look at it with jokes. It's, again, the higher motive doesn't mean anything to me, because I don't look at that joke or look at one that has a very positive spin, which there's plenty of that. And find either one has any more merits in the overall scheme of things. A good joke is a good joke. Patrice said it. We're talking about good jokes and bad jokes. They come from the same place. They're born from the same place. A vicious joke that bombs and a brilliant, smart joke that kills with an empathetic angle, clean, both come from the same place.
Why do comedians not? Why can't comedians be debated and reviewed?
Well, they can
and
be
judged, because that's really ultimately all it is. Louis not going anywhere. He's performing.
Sure, you're right.
Aren't we allowed to say, yeah, that was a brilliant joke. We've all done that with Louis. Aren't we allowed to go like, wow, these are pretty bad jokes?
But it's always someone else's. So pardon me, Sam. There's always someone else's stuff. Like no comedian has ever come out or any performer and said, "Here's what I've been saying that I shouldn't say." Not one person has ever done that. It's always, here's what you're saying that I don't like. Here's what you're saying that isn't woke. Here's what you're saying that's wrong. When's the last time comedians who are also fucking we're also introspective and mindful artists, when's the last time a comedian came out and outed himself and said, this is what I've been doing?
But that's not a good thing. Like if Eddie Murphy came out today and said, there are some jokes on my specials that looking back on, I'm not proud of. That's just who I was at the moment. But yeah, those I can't stand behind them anymore. I think people would be thrilled.
I mean material in the moment. Like how come no comics coming out going, wow, I'm saying this now and it's wrong. Or I'm not saying, we always seem like we have the perfect balance of taking horrible stuff and making it funny, but we'll find somebody else to criticize, but it's never what we're saying that we come out and you understand what I'm saying? Like you're going to say this about Louis, or Louis will say it about you, but you're not going to come out and go, hey, this material I'm doing is shitty and I shouldn't be doing it. It's cruel.
Don't you think the way the criticism is being taken is also part of it? The fact that like you'll tweet out, a whole bunch of tweets about Louis, and the issue is that it's not taken like, I'm just Judd and I'm talking to some peers and we're debating this thing right now. It reads as Judd Apatow, big name in comedy, and people treat it like a press release. Where it's like, and I don't think that that's even how you would have intended it. It's just.
But I am, honestly, no one's a bigger fan of comedy than me. And
right.
I like all the darkest stuff. But on some level, on a human level that has nothing to do with all the comedy rules, I just feel like it's more important to say to those kids and to trans people, hey, you're suffering. I care more about you than this.
Right.
I think that's more important to me, and I get it. You could say the same thing about about all sorts of different
cancer,
topics,
suicide,
but also it's a very fresh thing. So I understand everything you're saying, and for the most part, I agree. But I do think when you've hurt people, the rules slightly change. People are paying attention to, do you have empathy? Do you understand how people suffer? Do you understand how your choices in life make people suffer, and that's the context of watching him perform now, whether he likes it or not. That's what we're looking at. If Charlie Rose had a new show right now and all of his guests were like 19-year-old interns, we'd be like, that's kind of weird. Like, why would he go with that?
He doesn't have to, but he could use it as an opportunity.
And maybe he will. I don't know if he will or not, to be real honest. I would like to see him just because I love Louis and I do love him as a comic. So I would love to see him talk about it or write it. I don't know if he will or not.
I love when you went cancer, suicide. I was like, Jim just gave us his Netflix password.
Absolutely. And the title of my next book.
Well, it would be, believe me, if he came out there and said, this is what I did. Here's how I think I became the person who would do that. Here's what I was thinking at the time, why I thought it was okay. Here's how it felt to find out that I was wrong and that I was looking at it wrong. It would be one of the great, insightful comedy pieces. And I have to say, I would be surprised if in the next 2 years he doesn't attempt to do that. But at the same time, I wouldn't hammer the trans community.
Last question: Did you? Was
We're
there
gonna
a
get
trailer?
cut off, so
Was there a
just so
trailer of yours where they were promoting Crashing? Was
Yeah.
there a trailer of yours where there was a gay joke and people got pissed off?
A trailer?
Yeah, wasn't there some trailer?
It's probably the you know how I know you're gay bit from 40-year-old
that's
version.
right.
I
And
think
it's a fully debatable thing,
Right.
to go like, okay, looking back, are we saying that gay people are funny just being themselves? Or, like, what is the point of a bit like that? And, there's all sorts of ways to debate it. You could go like, well, I'm showing how immature and idiotic these guys are. I'm showing that they're afraid of their own masculinity or they're unsure of who they are. And I'm happy to have that debate in the same way we can debate the trans jokes or the Parkland jokes. I got reviewed for that. And I got some people who were mad about it and other people were like, no, it's just kind of a silly
you have that.
Are we cut
thing.
off or no?
No. We got about a minute.
Okay.
Yeah, and you did have to deal with that when Knocked Up came out.
Which is fine. I'm totally open to the debate.
We're here to promote the 20th anniversary of Knock. It's
By the
coming
way,
out.
Crashing, by the way, yes.
It's a hilarious show.
I knew we would
Crashing.
talk about it too. It's Crashing season 3
Jim,
premieres.
you're on the show.
Sunday at 10
You're
o'clock.
on.
I know. I was only in season 1 though. I want to be in season 3.
We got to get you in season 4.
I would love to.
It's on January 20th on HBO. Please watch it.
Yes.
And we actually kind of cover some of this stuff in the season. So some of the climate in the show biz.
Sunday at 10 p.m. It really is a great show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So check it out, and we're going to see you all tomorrow. And thank you very much, Judd and Pete.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank you
for a
guys. I appreciate
spirited
it.
conversation.
Yes, spirited.
Yes.